Yeah, back at the Chamber celebrating 140 years of Suffolk Chamber of Commerce, with the project leader, a woman who's been looking after me all these weeks, getting us ready, Molly Williams, our new project, our new partnership, our new collaboration, but you've done a lot of work.
Yes, yeah, I've been here since May last year, so working on the C140, which is a year-long initiative running through 2024 to celebrate 140 years of the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce.
And you're looking at it from more different ways, not only the getting the history in, but how to get it out. I mean, I've seen the technology you're going to be using and your web presence. And with Suffolk Sound being a member of the Chamber, you said, hey, we want a bit of that as well, so on audio as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think capturing the stories that we've gathered and doing it in different ways. So you've seen our fantastic website, but also making sure that we've got those voices and people talking about their contributions to Suffolk business and the Suffolk economy over the last 140 years. Although I guess the interviews are capturing the more recent stories.
So how did you get the project? Was it one day someone said, who'll do it? You put your hand up and said, yes, me.
So I actually started on the project as a bit of a volunteer at first, and then moved into working a bit more on the project, and have taken over, the C140 Project officer role since. So I've sort of been on both sides of it, because it is a volunteer-run project in one sense, and that was very much based in Suffolk Archives, looking through 140 years of chamber minutes. Some of that can be quite dry, but gathering those stories and finding those gems that we can share with the wider Suffolk community and more broadly, to showcase the Suffolk Chamber and celebrate its significance in Suffolk.
If it had been me, and I'm not like anybody else, I'd have said, oh, great, yeah, lovely, I've got the job, and then go home and think, oh, my goodness me, what have I taken on? Because it is a huge task, and the more you dig in, the more you find.
Absolutely. I think when the project first began, it was very much focused on really getting the Chamber's history as an organisation and understanding where did we start 140 years ago, what have we done, looking at things like what did we do during World War I, World War II, what did we do during Spanish flu. That was particularly relevant because the project came about not long after COVID, so we wanted to kind of explore those big topics and where we sat in terms of a broader history timeline. But the more we dug, the more we realised that actually, in order to tell the story of the Chamber, you have to tell the story of Suffolk business more broadly. And so that's when we went out to over 100 Suffolk businesses who are also our members and gathered more of their histories, more of their stories. And that is where some more absolute gems came out. And it's been really fascinating. I didn't know a lot about Suffolk business in terms of its history before I started the project, and now I feel a bit of an expert now, but yeah.
Let's go back right to the basics. What is a Chamber of Commerce? What does it do?
So a Chamber of Commerce, it's changed over time. So the first Chambers of Commerce came about in about the 16th century in France, and they came about in the aftermath of war, and traders in the local community got together to try and get local government officials to listen to them and understand what their trading needs were. That's sort of similar to today. The Suffolk Chamber has great roots into government and lobbies on behalf of its businesses, but more broadly, it is a voice of Suffolk business. It is a collective voice of all of its member businesses, and it represents the needs of that community to government, and to wider communities as well. It's also a fantastic opportunity for businesses to network, to connect. There's a lot of collaboration. So there's lots of different angles. We support in international trade with workshops, but also with export certification and things like that. So there are lots of different aspects to a chamber, but broadly it becomes the voice, the collective voice of Suffolk business, and that's why the chamber formed to unify the voices of Victorian businessmen so that government would take them seriously in a time when business was new, industry was new, and it's grown from there.
Highlighting the industries, because nowadays we think of Suffolk, and we think of rural, we think of tourism, we think of insurance. Industry was a big time, especially in the ports.
Absolutely. So the first chamber in Suffolk formed around the Ipswich docks, and it was actually formed by the Ipswich Dock Commission and the members of that commission, who were largely the big manufacturers in the docks. So Edward Packard, our first chairman, ran the works at Corporalite street. And we had people like R&W Pool, and other big Cranfields was a big member. So it was a lot of those heavy industries and those manufacturing businesses were amongst our founding members. Ransom, Sims and Jeffries, Ransoms and Rapier. So that was then a very important part of our identity. And actually Ransom, Sims and Jeffries in their current form today, Ransom Jacobson, are still a member and have been for 140 years, which is absolutely amazing.
Some of the research you've done, it must highlight not just the history of it, but the social, economic story of Suffolk. You are making history. You're documenting history now. Do you realise how important that is now?
I think that's part of why this project, which is funded by the National Lottery, has been so important, because I think a lot of people don't really recognise business history as such, as something that we should be interested in and engaged in. And actually, when you begin to understand the history of business in a region, you start pulling apart the seams and really digging into what makes society tick and the history of a much richer, much broader society. We've talked about picking up stories on diversity, and some of those stories come through with that business history, but you really get a sense of a community's history. And I think that's really, really important. It's a different angle to tell a story from, but everyone works in one form or another, and I think engaging with that and sharing that and showcasing the fantastic things business and industry and economy has achieved over the last 140 years is really, really important.
My discussions never go straight down the line. Can we talk about something funny we talked about when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the fisherwomen in Lowestoft? You know what I'm going to say now. Tell me the story about how you get fish scales out of your eye, and why would they be in there to start with? This is such a story. Of all the history, this is one because I can see it. Tell me the story.
Yes, so one of the stories that come out, we looked at the Scottish herring girls who worked up in Lowestoft at the sort of the turn of the 20th century, and they worked in teams of 3, gutting, packing, pickling herring, and they worked so quickly that often scales would flick off into their eyes. And the best way that we found out apparently to get scales out of someone's eye is with your tongue. And so there would be designated women within groups who would be charged with licking the scale out of their co-workers' eyes. So yeah, quite the story.
Quite a story. It doesn't take away from the importance, but it shows those histories. Okay, we've got 140 years. This history is going to continue, isn't it? That's going to go on and on and on. How proud do you feel of this now, what you've got so far?
I feel immensely proud. I think when we started, it felt like such an immense spread of so many stories, and it was how do you piece that together into a collective history that really celebrates Suffolk. So I think, I'm very proud that we've managed to bring it together on our fantastic project website and in the exhibition that we launched in April, and the aspects that we're touring around Suffolk at the moment.